So not last week, but the week previous to that, we talked about the price of a politician and about the fact that it would actually be cheaper for people to just recruit earnest activists and allies than it is to try to, get mercenary politicians into office and to try to bribe them. First off, I just want to apologize and thank you guys for your patience and how I not released a video last week. I had a lot of stressful things going on. I'm not necessarily apologizing for not bending so far backwards that my back breaks, but I do want to get in the habit of letting you guys know that I'm going to have to take a week off for, school stresses and stuff like that. That way, everybody just stays on the same page, so I thank you for your patience. But anyways, comments were fantastic, really insightful, really thought-provoking, so let's talk about them. So the Techie Moses points out that politicians are probably going to have areas where they are both an activist and also areas where they're kind of more mercenary. And I would totally 100% agree with that. I think this is kind of reflective of people in general, right? We're super enthusiastic about some things, other things we're just kind of let's just let it have a flow, or we may be more amenable to compromise in those places. And I use that last example intentionally because I think that sort of spread, right, not necessarily being an activist on every issue, is what ultimately allows for a major compromise to get passed. Part of the criticisms that are sort of coming at the more progressive grassroots movements on the left and the Tea Party caucus, or the former Tea Party caucus in the House, is that they are too extreme on too many issues and they won't come together to form a compromise, even with people in their own parties. So having these mercenary domains, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. It might mean that, we might actually get, policy compromise, and that's something that allows Congress to be productive. So yes, that's definitely a fact, it's definitely true, but I'm not necessarily sure that's a bad thing, and I'm not sure you were insinuating that either, so I don't know, but an interesting point. As I mentioned in the video that I uploaded a couple days ago, Dorian Sapiens noted that there should be some sort of correspondence between money in the activism model as well as money in the mercenary model, and there is a correspondence between those two things. But as I mentioned in there is a huge moderating factor, and that is district competition. So again, if you think about interest groups as being perfectly rational actors, it doesn't make much rational sense for an interest group, like say the NRA, to invest a whole heaping bunch of money in those conservative counties in Nebraska or Texas or something like that, because those are places where their candidate is already going to win. So that's why you see a correspondence, and that correspondence isn't necessarily perfect between the amount of money being spent in the activism model and ultimate vote outcome, because the money is going to be funneled into districts that are more competitive, where the people who are pro this and anti that are going to be neck and neck at the polls. These interest groups are going to be spending a lot of money in publicity and get out the vote efforts to try to make sure that their candidate ultimately wins, because there's a chance that they may not. However, they're really not going to feel the need to do that sort of expenditure in places where their ideology is relatively accepted in the norm. To Stormtrooper, thank you very much. I appreciate the constructive feedback. Seriously, it's hard for me on my computer, if the machine is Paleolithic, for me to be able to gauge whether or not the music is too loud. So I appreciate that feedback, as well as to Ron Brosh in terms of the feedback on the camera quality. Again, these are all technical things that I am obviously not the most well versed in. So if you guys, when you guys do give back this feedback, I do appreciate it. And specifically to Ron Brosh, that is one of the things that is high on my list of priorities for buying once this YouTube channel starts generating some revenue, which, considering that I'm now apparently in the cohort that'll be decided in June, I'm not holding my breath for, but I'm going to be trying to explore other options in terms of trying to make it so that the visual quality as well as the audio quality are improved. So if you're noticing issues, or you're noticing things like that, things that you think I can improve, continue to please let me know. Shout out to the Darth Kalanel, who I learned is actually a viewer that I have from Syria. First off, I'm just utterly gassed that this channel has managed to have any form of international reach, at all, but I just wanted to say, seriously, just stay safe out there. You are in my thoughts. Ashley Flynn, I think I am in agreement, at least to a point. If you look at the history of a lot of the members of Congress and a lot of politicians in the United States, you'll find that a lot of them actually truly and genuinely have relatively humble upbringings, right? A number of different people on the right and the left both came from impoverished settings, and so they do understand what it's like to be poor in America. I would argue that they know what it was like to be poor in America 40 years ago, or maybe even longer. And times have definitely changed. What it means to be poor today, the sorts of things that, younger generations and older generations and just people in general have to do in order to survive is totally different. And I think that they need to be more open to the experiences of their constituents who undergo these sorts of adversities. So I think that these people are in fact actual people. And I think they are like you and me, but they're like how you and I would be if we grew up in a totally different era. Finally, CodeCat X5 argued that either way you're going to see it being kind of a vote buy-off, right? Either there's going to be a lot of money being spent on the process of electing individuals, or you're going to have a lot of money being spent on buying the votes of individuals once they're in office, and they argued that there's really no real difference between the two. And I would argue, actually, from a little r Republican standpoint, that there actually is a huge and very important difference between the two. I guess little d Democratic too, so Democratic-Republican ideal. So while money and political victories tend to have a pretty strong correlation, it's definitely not a one-to-one correspondence. There was the head of the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania, or somebody who had really been within the Democratic Party for a long time in Pennsylvania, and they lost despite severely outspending their opponent. Donald Trump in this last election was severely outspent by many of his Republican competitors, and was also outspent tremendously by Hillary Clinton, and yet he still won the presidency. So what money does is give people a bigger megaphone, right? It amplifies their voice and allows it to carry further and resonate deeper. But people have the option to ignore that idea, or to be able to consult with experts. When the thing is done before the election, there's an opportunity for people to still research that information coming their way and decide against it. But if you were to have somebody who was voted in by these individuals, and then they were just to be bought off by people who give the highest bidder, then the people no longer really have a say. There's no way of differentiating, no way of having their voices be heard. Except when the next election rolls around, when they then can decide to exercise their voice and their vote to make sure that that kind of person is not involved in politics in the first place. I don't know, my 2 cents at least. That's all the time that we have for today's office hours. Thank you guys so much for your interest and your comments. I truly enjoy reading all of them, so if you have any about this video, please leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll be as active in the comment section as I can. Sources for all the videos, or links to all the videos rather, will be down in the doobly-doo, as well as links to the Facebook, Twitter, and the blog. Look forward to seeing you guys out there as well. If you enjoyed this video, or you enjoy the sorts of things that I do on the channel, you can help by giving a thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by continuing to comment down below, either here or on videos that you find interesting, by sharing those videos, and by subscribing to the channel and stay in the loop for more awesome social science content is uploaded. And if you want to be assured to be in the loop, to make sure that you actually know when new videos are going up, be sure to click the bell icon as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.